In Naruto, there are shinobi who fell with honor. But there are also those who were defeated in utterly humiliating ways to the point that fans still remember their names as some of the most disgraceful failures. And in today's video, we'll go over the most humiliating defeats suffered by ninja throughout the entire series. Right from the very beginning of the story, we witnessed one of the most humiliating defeats in the entire series, Mizuki versus Naruto. He tricked Naruto into stealing the Scroll of Seals, believing he could exploit the boy's innocence to obtain the power of forbidden jutsu. But Mizuki was wrong, terribly wrong. At the decisive moment, Naruto not only stood by Iruka-sensei's side, but also revealed a potential far beyond anyone's imagination by using the multi-shadow clone jutsu, a high-level technique that ordinary genin couldn't even perform. During the fight, Mizuki kept boasting about being a skilled ninja, yet he was completely overwhelmed by hundreds of Naruto's shadow clones and beaten to the point where he couldn't even stand, lying flat on the ground with a swollen face. That was Naruto's very first victory, and the first moment of humiliation we ever witnessed in the entire series. Later on, even after Mizuki had Orochimaru's cells implanted to enhance his strength, he was still humiliatingly defeated by Naruto with just a Rasengan, proving that no matter how much artificial power he obtained, someone like Mizuki could never surpass the young ninja he once looked down on. You could even say that Mizuki unintentionally played a big role in creating a legend. Because without his scheme, Naruto wouldn't have stolen the Scroll of Seals, nor would he have learned the multi-shadow clone jutsu, the technique that paved his path to becoming the strongest shinobi. During the Chunin exams in the Forest of Death, there was a particularly memorable battle, one where the one who suffered total humiliation was Zaku Abumi, a shinobi from the Hidden Sound Village. At that time, Sasuke was still unconscious due to the effects of the cursed seal left by Orochimaru. Zaku and his two teammates discovered Team 7 and didn't hesitate to attack with the intent to kill. Sakura tried her best to protect Sasuke and Naruto, but she was quickly overpowered and severely injured, completely helpless before the enemy. However, that mistake would cost Zaku dearly. The moment Sasuke regained consciousness, the cursed seal began to take effect, releasing a sinister surge of purple chakra. Consumed by this new power, Sasuke became colder and more ruthless than ever. He used a fire release technique as a diversion, then instantly closed the distance and seized both of Zaku's arms. With a single kick, Sasuke shattered his joints, destroying the very parts that allowed Zaku to perform his sound release attacks. It was the ultimate moment of humiliation, and to make matters worse, Zaku was later used by Orochimaru as a sacrifice for the Edo Tensei ritual, reduced to nothing more than a disposable tool. Next up, during the one-on-one preliminary matches of the Chunin exams, when every fight was intense and fierce, several ninja were defeated in the most unexpected ways. And one of the most unforgettable losses was the match between Kiba and Naruto. At first, Kiba had complete control. With his super-sensitive sense of smell and perfect coordination with Akamaru, he continuously overwhelmed Naruto with both speed and strength. Naruto was pushed into a defensive corner, seemingly with no chance of turning the tide. But everything changed in a way no one could have predicted. Naruto, having accidentally drunk spoiled milk before the match, suddenly unleashed a technique no one saw coming. As Kiba rushed in, his nose got way too close to a critical area. And right at that moment, Naruto farted directly into his face. For a shinobi like Kiba, whose greatest asset is his heightened sense of smell, it was nothing short of a critical hit. He was stunned, disoriented, and completely unable to react to any of Naruto's follow-up attacks. Naruto immediately took advantage of the situation, used his shadow clones to counterattack, and ended the match. Kiba lost not because of a difference in power, but because his greatest strength turned into his greatest weakness. And more than that, he lost in one of the most humiliating situations ever seen in the world of anime. Not everyone can say, "I was defeated by a fart." But unfortunately, that is exactly what happened to Kiba Inuzuka in that year's Chunin exam. Still, during the Chunin exams, there was another iconic battle that cannot be overlooked, the humiliation that Tenten suffered at the hands of Temari. Tenten was known as a kunoichi, highly skilled in long-range weaponry, possessing a vast arsenal and near-perfect accuracy with her throws. But unfortunately for her, her opponent was Temari, a user of wind release, an elemental style that completely countered Tenten's fighting method. Throughout the entire battle, every attack Tenten launched was effortlessly blown away by Temari's giant fan. Not only did Temari neutralize Tenten's entire arsenal, she also counterattacked with such powerful gusts of wind that Tenten was lifted into the air, then slammed straight down into the ground. The fight ended quickly and one-sidedly, leaving Tenten with no chance to recover or turn the tables. And to complete the humiliation, Temari even kicked Tenten across the arena after she was already completely incapacitated, clearly displaying her overwhelming strength and dominance. It was evident even then that Temari was already a formidable kunoichi. It's also worth noting that this was one of the very few battles in which Tenten ever had a moment to shine. After this fight, she gradually faded into obscurity, and the only thing most people remember about her is this humiliating defeat. During the Chunin exams, there was yet another ninja who suffered a humiliating defeat, though this time, it didn't happen in the official arena, but rather outside the exam grounds while the matches were still ongoing. The central figure was Dosu Kinuda, facing off against Gaara. Dosu, the leader of the sound team, was known as a clever ninja and was considered quite capable during the exams. He didn't wait for the final rounds, but instead took the initiative to ambush Gaara early, intending to eliminate him beforehand to increase his own chances of advancing. But everything ended in just a few seconds. Just as Dosu was about to make his move, Gaara crushed him with sand, giving him no time to react, and even revealed a glimpse of Shukaku's power in the process. It was a swift, brutal, and utterly humiliating defeat that clearly demonstrated Gaara's true level of danger. As a result, Dosu lost his chance to compete in the finals because he was killed before his match even began. During the Sasuke retrieval mission, the Sound Four challenged the squad from the Hidden Leaf village, forcing them to face each enemy one by one. Among them, Jirobo clashed with Choji Akimichi. From the very beginning, Jirobo completely underestimated Choji. He constantly mocked his appearance and belittled his strength, claiming Choji was nothing more than a weak burden to his team. The battle initially tilted heavily in Jirobo's favor, as he easily overwhelmed Choji with sheer physical power, relentlessly pushing him into a corner. But that was when the nightmare began for Jirobo himself. Choji went on to use the Akimichi clan's 3 colored pills to gradually increase his power, from the green pill to the yellow pill, and finally the red pill, a last resort option used only in life or death situations. After swallowing the red pill, Choji activated butterfly mode, forming chakra wings on his back and reaching a level of strength that completely surpassed Jirobo. In just a few moves, the tide of battle turned completely. And the most humiliating detail of the fight was when Jirobo began begging for his life, right before Choji delivered the finishing blow. He entered the battle with arrogance and contempt, and ended it by pleading with Choji not to kill him. It was a victory full of emotion, and a powerful reminder that underestimating an Akimichi is a fatal mistake. When Akatsuki had only just begun to reveal itself, the Hidden Leaf village was quickly forced to face a true nightmare, Itachi Uchiha. The battle between Itachi and both Kurenai and Kakashi was not only the first time Akatsuki's power was truly displayed, but also became one of the most humiliating moments in the early part of the series. The event took place when Itachi and Kisame infiltrated the Leaf Village in search of Naruto Uzumaki. Their sudden appearance immediately put the Jonin on high alert, and the first to arrive on the scene were also the first to be taken down. Kurenai, known as a genjutsu specialist, attempted to cast an illusion to restrain Itachi. However, she quickly realized she was facing a completely different level of mastery. Itachi not only nullified her technique with ease, but immediately countered by turning her own genjutsu against her, trapping her in an illusion of her own making. If not for her experience and quick reflexes, she could have been finished right then and there. Though she managed to escape, she was still knocked out of the fight in a matter of seconds. Kakashi arrived shortly after to assist, but the situation didn't improve. He was immediately caught in Tsukuyomi, Itachi's most terrifying genjutsu, and suffered intense psychological torture. While only a few seconds passed in the real world, within Itachi's illusion, Kakashi experienced several hours of torment. With just himself, Itachi was able to effortlessly defeat 2 of Konoha's top jonin without breaking a sweat. This episode made it unmistakably clear that Itachi operated on a level far beyond that of most ordinary shinobi in the Hidden Leaf. At the beginning of Naruto Shippuden, we witnessed a battle that simply cannot be overlooked. This was a meticulously calculated act of revenge, and also one of the most humiliating defeats ever suffered by a member of Akatsuki. The central figure of this battle was Hidan, and the one who delivered his downfall was none other than Shikamaru Nara. After Hidan brutally killed Asuma Sarutobi, the teacher whom Shikamaru deeply respected, Shikamaru swore to take revenge. Unlike a typical confrontation, this battle was a perfect trap, where Shikamaru used strategy instead of brute strength to punish his enemy. He lured Hidan into a forest within the Nara clan's territory, a location he had thoroughly prepared in advance for the showdown. By combining his shadow possession jutsu with a series of explosive tags, Shikamaru immobilized Hidan, detonated the explosives to blow his body apart, and then threw him into a deep pit that had already been dug. Not stopping there, he continued by throwing in more explosive tags and burying Hidan underground, a place where he could neither move nor perform the sacrificial rituals for Jashin. Though considered immortal, Hidan was permanently imprisoned and completely cut off from the means of sustaining his immortality. To this day, many fans still wonder whether Hidan might still be alive in that hole, but the answer is no, because in order to remain immortal, Hidan needed to continuously offer sacrifices to Jashin, and once he was buried and unable to perform the ritual, his immortality ended and Hidan ultimately died. A humiliating and bitter defeat. When talking about Akatsuki, one simply cannot ignore Kisame Hoshigaki, known as the tailed beast without a tail. A powerful and loyal shinobi, Kisame possessed an enormous chakra reserve and overwhelming water release abilities. Yet, ironically, he was one of the few to die in humiliation, and the one who humiliated him was none other than Might Guy. Throughout the series, Kisame clashed with Guy multiple times, and it must be acknowledged that in every encounter, Guy emerged as the clear victor. However, it was their final battle that marked the most humiliating moment of Kisame's shinobi career. Even after unleashing powerful water release techniques and creating an enormous dome of water to dominate the battlefield, Kisame still couldn't withstand the sheer force of Guy's taijutsu. When Guy opened the 6th gate of the 8 inner gates, Kisame was completely overwhelmed in both speed and power. After being defeated, Kisame was restrained and captured, with the intention of being taken back for interrogation. But in order to protect the secrets of Akatsuki, Kisame chose to end his own life using a suicide technique, a final act of loyalty. The one who ended Kisame's life was not Guy, but Kisame himself. However, what made his defeat all the more bitter was the fact that from beginning to end, Guy always had the upper hand, and Kisame never managed to win even once. A strong and resilient warrior, worthy of respect, yet in the end, Kisame left the stage not in glory, but in silence and in the shame of never having defeated his destined rival. During the first reunion with Sasuke after his long departure from the Hidden Leaf Village, the new Team 7 finally managed to track down his hideout within Orochimaru's base, and it must be admitted that what followed was a rather humiliating encounter. In this battle, Yamato, Naruto, Sakura, and Sai infiltrated Orochimaru's hideout in search of Sasuke, while Sai was carrying out a secret mission assigned by Danzo to assassinate Uchiha Sasuke. However, Sasuke showcased the full extent of the power he had gained during his training under Orochimaru, revealing an overwhelming gap in strength that far surpassed Sai, Yamato, and even Naruto. He humiliated the entire squad, infiltrated Naruto's mind, and spoke directly with Kurama through Genjutsu, and brutally overpowered Yamato, asserting complete and unquestionable dominance. Some theories suggest that Sasuke was even preparing to use Kirin to end the battle, but Orochimaru intervened just in time, forcing him to retreat from the battlefield. Thus, from the very beginning of the Shippuden arc, Sasuke had already proven his absolute superiority, completely humiliating his former teammates. And when speaking of Sasuke, one absolutely cannot ignore his battle against Danzo, one of the most intense Sharingan showdowns in the entire series. Danzo was a shinobi responsible for countless atrocities, a manipulator who operated from the shadows while pulling the strings of the Hidden Leaf Village, and a figure many fans longed to see punished in the most devastating way. It must be acknowledged that defeating Danzo was no easy task. Throughout his fight with Sasuke, he combined Wind Release with Izanagi, launching a series of deadly counterattacks that repeatedly pushed Sasuke to his limits. At several points, Sasuke needed support from Karin, and potentially even Obito had the situation escalated any further. Nonetheless, Sasuke endured everything and had to kill Danzo 10 times before truly ending him, as Izanagi allowed Danzo to resurrect after each fatal blow. When cornered, Danzo began to panic, resorting to taking Karin hostage and even attempting to flee in order to avoid defeat. But it was all in vain. In his final act of desperation, Danzo activated a self-destruction technique, intending to take everything around him in a massive explosion, ending the battle in disgrace, stripped of all dignity. Despite wielding Izanagi through 10 Sharingan embedded in his arm and possessing Hashirama's cells, Danzo still couldn't escape the humiliating and well-deserved downfall dealt to him by Sasuke Uchiha. Among all the humiliating moments in Naruto, this is perhaps the most unfair and one of the most disappointing outcomes in the entire series. It was the moment Black Zetsu stabbed Uchiha Madara from behind, abruptly ending the role of the greatest villain in the story in a truly humiliating way. Throughout the Fourth Great Ninja War, Madara was portrayed as an unstoppable force. He single-handedly crushed elite members of the allied shinobi forces, overwhelmed all 5 Kage, pushed Naruto and Sasuke to their limits, and even left the reanimated Kage helpless. Madara reached the pinnacle of power when he became the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki, convinced that no one could threaten him anymore. But just as he had full control over the battlefield, Black Zetsu suddenly pierced through his body from behind and revealed a shocking truth. The entire plan had been nothing more than a setup to revive Kaguya Otsutsuki. It wasn't Obito, nor Hashirama, nor even Naruto or Sasuke who took Madara down. It was a parasitic being, one that had remained in the shadows for most of the series. That moment completely shattered the image of invincibility Madara had built. All his power, all his planning in the end, he was merely a pawn in someone else's game. And the worst part is, Madara was defeated while at his strongest, as the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki, and yet he didn't even realize the attack until it was too late. A humiliating and bitter end for Madara, one that fell far short of the stature of a villain who had once brought the entire shinobi world to its knees. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos.